The sun had barely risen when the mist clung low over the valley, drifting like breath over the wild river. On the far bank, pine trees stood in silent witness, their long shadows stretching toward the trembling boy who stood barefoot on the muddy edge. His name was Eli, a 12-year-old orphan who had known nothing but hardship since the world took everything from him. His parents had perished in a fire that swept through the settlers' camp months ago, and since that night, Eli had wandered alone through the harsh wilderness, scavenging berries, drinking from cold creeks, sleeping under stars that cared nothing for him. Hunger had made him hollow, loneliness had made him quiet, but the one thing that had never left his eyes was a flicker of kindness, the kind of light only those who have known pain can carry. The river before him was wide and fast. The spring melt had made its current strong, and the icy water snarled around the rocks. He had crossed this stream before, but never when it was this wild. He hesitated, clutching a small bundle tied with a rope, all that remained of his meager life. A worn blanket, a dull knife, and a piece of bread too hard to eat. Then, from across the rushing water, he saw movement. An old native elder, bent with age and leaning on a stick, was trying to make his way down to the bank. The man's leg dragged slightly, his steps uneven. Behind him no one followed, no tribe, no family, no aid. Eli watched, unsure what to do. In those days, settlers and the local tribes barely trusted one another. Stories told around the fire spoke of raids and revenge, of fear that burned deeper than the cold. But this old man, he didn't look dangerous. His face carried years of wisdom and suffering, his breath labored, his pace slow. When he reached the river's edge, he paused, staring at the rushing water that stood between him and safety. His staff trembled in his hand. Something inside Eli stirred. He didn't think about fear or race or anything else that had divided people for so long. He saw only a man who needed help. Without hesitation, Eli threw off his worn jacket and stepped into the water. The cold bit into his legs, but he pushed forward, one step at a time. The river fought him. Each wave slammed against his knees, nearly knocking him down. But the boy pressed on until he reached the other side. The old man looked at him, startled. His dark eyes studied the boy for a moment, then softened. "Why you come, child?" the elder asked, his voice deep and broken. Eli panted, "You'll fall if you try alone. I can help." The elder nodded slowly, surrendering to the boy's courage. With careful hands, Eli took the old man's arm over his shoulder. Together, they stepped into the river, the boy trembling under the man's weight, the current tugging at their legs, stones slipping beneath their feet. Halfway through, the water rose to Eli's waist, cold and merciless. The elder almost lost his footing, but Eli gritted his teeth and held firm. "Almost there. Hold on." When they reached the other side, both collapsed on the riverbank, gasping for air. The elder stared at him for a long while. Then slowly he smiled. "You are brave," he said, "and kind." He touched the boy's chest gently. "Not many hearts like yours left in this world." Eli shrugged, too tired to speak. The old man motioned for him to follow. Together, they walked through the trees to a small, hidden camp, a circle of huts surrounded by smoke and pine. Native men and women turned as they arrived, eyes narrowing at the sight of a foreign boy among them. The elder raised his hand. "This child helped me cross the river," he said. "He risked his life for one who is not his kind." A ripple of murmurs spread among the people, their gazes softening. Eli felt uneasy, unsure if he should stay. That night they shared food with him, venison stew, warm and rich, the first real meal he'd had in weeks. Children laughed nearby, the fire crackled, and the stars hung bright above. For the first time since losing everything, Eli felt a strange warmth in his heart. The elder sat beside him and said softly, "The river you crossed today was not just water. It was the line between two worlds, fear and faith. You crossed it with courage. Tomorrow you will see what the tribe has decided." Eli didn't know what that meant, but when he lay down beside the fire that night, he felt something new, hope. When dawn broke over the valley, the camp stirred to life. Smoke from the morning fires drifted lazily into the pale blue sky, and the sound of quiet chanting echoed from the river. Eli woke to warmth, the kind of warmth he hadn't felt in months. A woolen blanket covered his shoulders, soft and heavy, smelling faintly of smoke and cedar. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then he heard soft laughter, the native children playing outside the hut. He sat up slowly, the events of the previous day, rushing back like the current of the river he had crossed. The old man, the elder he had helped, was already awake, sitting by the fire, his leg bandaged and resting on a carved wooden support. His sharp eyes turned toward Eli and softened into a smile. "You sleep well, River Boy?" he asked in a low, gravelly voice. Eli nodded shyly. "Yes, sir." The elder gestured for him to come closer. "Eat," he said, handing him a wooden bowl filled with warm corn porridge and berries. Eli's hands trembled slightly as he took it. No one had called him to eat in a long time. When he finished, the elder stood with effort and called out in his native tongue. Within moments, several members of the tribe gathered around. The air grew silent. Eli looked around nervously, unsure what was happening. Then the elder raised his hand toward the boy and spoke in English, his voice clear and commanding. "Yesterday, this child crossed the angry river not for reward, not for fear, but because his heart told him to help. In doing so, he reminded us of a truth we sometimes forget. Kindness has no tribe." The gathered people murmured in agreement. A woman stepped forward, her eyes kind. She placed her hand on Eli's shoulder and said softly, "You have no home, yes?" Eli nodded, staring at the ground. The elder lifted his chin. "Then from this day you have one. You are welcome among us." The words struck Eli harder than any storm. He blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "You mean I can stay?" The elder smiled. "You can stay, learn our ways, eat at our fire, and walk among our people. You have crossed one river. Now cross into a new life." Tears filled the boy's eyes before he could stop them. For so long the world had turned its back on him. He had been the orphan, the wanderer, the forgotten. And now in this unlikely place, among those he had been taught to fear, he found the one thing he had lost: belonging. The days that followed were like waking from a long dream. The tribe taught him how to fish with a handmade spear, how to track deer in the forest, and how to respect the land as if it were alive. The children laughed with him, racing through the tall grass. He helped the women gather firewood and water from the river he had once feared. At night he sat by the fire with the elder, listening to stories of spirits, ancestors, and warriors who protected their people not with anger, but with honor. One evening, after weeks of living among them, Eli found the elder sitting by the same riverbank. The water was calm now, glittering under the sunset. The old man looked at him and said, "Do you know why I asked the tribe to take you in?" Eli shook his head. The elder smiled faintly. "Because long ago, when I was young, I too was helped by someone who crossed a river for me. That act saved my life. When you reached out your hand to me, I saw the same spirit, a circle completed." He paused, picking up a smooth stone and tossing it into the current. "You see, boy, kindness travels like water. It moves, it finds a way, and when it reaches someone's heart, it never stops flowing." Eli nodded slowly, his chest tightening with emotion. He looked across the river, the same water that had once separated him from the world, and saw now only connection. Weeks turned into months. The boy who had once been hungry and alone became part of a family that didn't share his blood but shared his heart. When the first snow came, the tribe gave him a name, Tabani, meaning the one who helps. It was an honor, a symbol that he had been fully accepted. One night, as the tribe celebrated around the fire, the elder raised his cup high and said, "This boy came to us a stranger, but the river carried him to his destiny. May we all remember, no act of kindness is ever wasted." Eli smiled, looking at the faces around him, the laughter, the dancing, the sound of drums beating like a heartbeat. He finally understood what it meant to have a home, not made of walls or blood, but of compassion. As the flames flickered and sparks rose into the night, Eli looked at the camera and said in a soft, emotional voice, Sometimes it only takes one act of kindness to change an entire life, maybe even your own. So if this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button, because I believe the world needs more stories like this, stories that remind us that kindness still exists. Don't just watch. Be part of the good.